The President of the United States just met face to face with a former al-Qaeda militant, the new Syrian president. Trump also just signed a $142 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia, and that is just the beginning. Well, Erick Stakelbeck, host of Stakelbeck Tonight on TBN, joins us now. So, my brother, there's an editorial on the Jerusalem Post that calls this whole Middle East shakeup a, quote, new world order. So this is a big deal. What say you about Trump's Middle East trip?
Yeah, it's absolutely, in a way, Raj, revolutionary, because President Trump, unlike former administrations in the U.S., is not necessarily holding these regimes to human rights standards. I guess you would say it's very transactional. And in a sense, look, President Trump is saying, I'm putting America first. He campaigned on it. And in his dealings with the Gulf states just this week, Raj, we've seen that close to $1 trillion in investment in the United States from the Saudis, the Qataris, and the UAE. Look, at the end of the day, that does benefit the American worker, American businesses. We've seen American business leaders on this trip with President Trump. So I guess you could say, Raj, it's kind of an emotionless foreign policy in a sense. And it's almost like the world is a spreadsheet, and it's very transactional. But I think President Trump, at the end of the day, is saying, okay, this is going to benefit the United States. I'm bringing money, I'm bringing commerce to America. That's going to help American families and American workers. It's a new way of doing it for sure, but this is the art of the deal. President Trump is a deal maker, and he's projecting strength once again, Raj, American strength on the world stage. Literally, the red carpet was rolled out for him in Saudi Arabia and Qatar. So a new day for sure. Let's see where it's all heading. A positive, I think, returns so far.
So President Trump, when asked about the new Syrian president, Ahmed al-Shara, said, quote, he's young, attractive guy, tough guy, strong past, very strong past fighter. He's got a real shot of holding it all together. So this guy was the former head of Jabhat al-Nusra, a branch of al-Qaeda, and now he's meeting with the president of the United States. What do you make of al-Jilani?
We're talking about a rapid rise, Raj. Look, just until a little while ago, he had a $10 million bounty on his head, courtesy of the United States. That tells you where he's coming from. This was an al-Qaeda guy, a jihadist through and through. Now he's the most powerful man in a very pivotal country, Syria, which lays right at Israel's doorstep, by the way. Look, this is the ultimate. I mentioned wait and see how this pans out, this new foreign policy approach. This is the ultimate wait and see. Let's see. Al-Jilani, also known as Ahmed al-Shara, he's even got two names. He's saying he's a new man. He's trimmed his beard. He's not wearing the terrorist garb anymore. He's dressed himself up in a suit and tie, and that's all great. But what about the intent? Look, since his regime took power in December, Raj, we've seen religious minorities in Syria targeted, whether it's the Druze, Christians, Kurds. So let's see if there's real credibility behind his words. He says he wants to, for instance, join the Abraham Accords with Israel, and that all sounds great. But is he the real deal, or is he a jihadist tool of Recep Erdogan in Turkey, Raj, who many think is kind of the real hand behind Syria right now and this new regime? So wait and see for sure. Sanctions lifted. Let's see. Does he have nefarious intentions towards Israel, or could he truly join the Abraham Accords? In my experience, Raj, covering this for a long time, being on the ground in the region and even interviewing terrorists and former terrorists, the jihadi leopard usually doesn't change its spots. Let's hope that it's different in Syria. President Trump taking a big chance here, but he's doing it at the behest of those Gulf leaders, the Saudis, the Qataris, the UAE. They wanted Syria to join the community of nations, so to speak, once again. And last point here, Raj, this is also part of forming an axis, an arc against Iran. Remember, Iran basically controlled Syria for over a decade, and now the U.S. is trying to build an Arab anti-Iran coalition and flip Syria into the pro-West column. Again, we'll see if it can work.
The amount of headlines that have come out of this very short meeting are just staggering. And one that's made a lot of rounds is the idea that Qatar is basically trying to gift the president a $400 million brand new shiny Air Force One. That has caused a lot of people on both sides of the aisle to put up the red flags. What do you think about this move from Qatar?
Yeah, Qatar is a problematic regime, Raj. In 2017, President Trump himself, during his first term, said Qatar needs to stop funding terrorism. Well, guess what? They haven't stopped in the ensuing 8 years. They're the driving force behind financing Hamas along with the Iranian regime. So Qatar is problematic on many levels. I think President Trump is saying, look, if we improve business dealings, economic dealings with the Qataris, maybe we can talk some sense into them, offer them more investment in the United States. That remains to be seen. But look, with the plane, I don't love it because of the source. You think back, the French gave us the Statue of Liberty. This ain't the French. I mean, this is Qatar, again, which has been a terror sponsor in many ways. I'm not big on whataboutism, but I will say, Raj, in this case, with Democrats and the left howling about this, they said nothing, and they've said nothing over the past few decades when the Qataris have poured billions into American universities and have helped really lead or drive the tenor of what's being taught in American universities, which is, surprise, surprise, not friendly to the West and not friendly to Israel. So I don't love taking this gift from Qatar because it's Qatar and knowing their links.
So, Erick, you are one of the foremost people on all of YouTube that people go to see, the Watchmen newscast when they want to know what's happening in the Middle East right now. And one of the things that a lot of folks, subscribe to your channel for is to find out how this impacts Israel. So even though President Trump didn't stop in Israel, it's Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. How does this whole meetings impact the Jewish state?
Profound implications for the Jewish state, Raj. And President Trump said today on Air Force One, as he was in the air traveling between countries, that this is great for Israel. He said this is very good for Israel, this swing. What he wants to do, again, is, number one, continue to just forge closer ties between Israel and the Sunni Arab world as a bulwark against Iran and the Iran axis. And he talked about the Abraham Accords, Raj. Yesterday, he said in Riyadh, I want Saudi Arabia to join the Abraham Accords and normalize relations with Israel. Of course, the UAE is already there. I don't think Qatar is getting there anytime soon, but we mentioned Syria a minute ago. Perhaps Syria joins the Abraham Accords. It would have been inconceivable just a few years ago, even a few months ago, but now it's all on the table. I think it impacts Israel in that way. These are rapidly shifting sands in what was already the world's most chaotic and strategic and prophetic region. And now it's gone into overdrive with President Trump. The prophetic chess pieces, I believe, are moving on the board. And I hope Israel is left stronger at the end of the day. The big question in all of this, Raj, twofold, I think. Number one, Gaza. What is the end game there? And the Trump administration would like to see the war over, but Israel's saying rightfully, hey, look, we're not done yet. We need to finish the job. But the big one looming over this entire meeting, to my mind, Raj, this entire Middle East trip, is Iran's nuclear program. And President Trump talked about it again. We just had 200 members of Congress, Republican members of Congress today, both in the Senate and the House, saying, look, nothing short of complete dismantlement of Iran's nuclear weapons program will do. President Trump pulled out of a disastrous Obama nuclear deal in 2018, rightly so. It wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to now sign on to a similar deal that he pulled out of, which he called the worst deal in history, his words. So I'm staying optimistic. I'm giving President Trump the benefit of the doubt on Iran, given his first term, Raj, which was so incredibly pro-Israel and tough on Iran.
Well, the Middle East, to say it's changing rapidly would be quite the understatement. The fact that it's even in the concept of ideas that there could be a peace treaty between Syria and Israel and Saudi Arabia. The fact that El Al flights, in theory, in the near future could be stopping in Riyadh and Damascus, just wild. So obviously, Erick, we'll have to have you back on because things are changing by the minute. I mean, just hop on Twitter. It's like just when you thought, the biggest headline of the day happened, something else happened. So, Erick, you are a wealth of information. Love you like a brother. Thank you so much for coming on, my friend.
Thanks, Raj. Appreciate it. God bless.